All right, great. Hello, welcome. This is not a time warp. We are the 1 o'clock session at 3 o'clock, so instead of the after lunch sleepies, you get the mid-afternoon sleepies. So it's a win-win for everyone. Welcome to Marginalia, or Illuminating the ArcGIS PowerShell DSC. This presentation is about automating an ArcGIS deployment using tools that do not require clicking around a GUI. We're going to look at some code type things. There will be only one picture of a map, and there's kind of a live demo. If you're cool with that, then by all means, please stay. However, if you'd prefer to learn about datums, somethingums, there's a great presentation by Half and Associates about that right next door. So, strap in. We're gonna do some stuff. All right. So if you have not been to a presentation of mine before, let me preface this by saying I will not be reading from any of my slides. A pet peeve of mine is a presentation that is the exact same verbally as it is visually, and because of that, I won't do it. A little bit about myself professionally. I undertook this project when I was the data and GIS manager for the town of Prosper. I have since joined the HEB family as a senior geospatial development engineer, which is a very fancy way of saying I'm a programmer and automation specialist. I received my GISP in 2018. I am a certified drone pilot and am very interested in interacting with the Esriverse in a way that is scalable. If you're wondering what's up with the whole aesthetic, I'm glad you asked. The presentation takes its name and design cues from illuminated manuscripts of the medieval age. My degree is actually in history and political science, and honestly, it's more fun this way anyway. So, what's very interesting about these texts in an age before the printing press is obviously they had to be duplicated by hand, and in that process, those scribes would often illustrate or make written notes in the margins, either as a way of expanding upon the work, having a conversation with the text and its themes, and in some instances being a little subversive with regard to the original content. This presentation will function in a similar way, maybe all of the above, and it is a very legitimate excuse to show lots of pictures of medieval gastropod warfare. So that's what's ahead for us. This is a signpost. We're signposting here. Before this project, my assumption was that PowerShell was only used in the command line and really just meant for systems administration type tasks. However, like everything in life and programming, I discovered there's a ton of stuff that I just don't know, didn't know, still don't know, and more specifically is the concept of a desired state configuration. The next few blurbs are taken straight from the Microsoft documentation pages. I don't speak Middle English in the same way that I don't really code in PowerShell. So the desired state configuration, or DSC, is a paradigm for utilizing PowerShell to handle the installation and configuration of a variety of software packages. What Esri has done here is utilize PowerShell to install the various components of the ArcGIS Enterprise on their respective machines and configure those components appropriately. Meaning, you can run a single command called an invoke and go through the entire installation of every component of the ArcGIS Enterprise without once clicking through an installation wizard or any other kind of pop-up, although a wizard would be part of the aesthetic here. And this goes beyond installation as well. It handles upgrades, patching, desktop deployments, even services if you were so inclined. The goal here is to be able to end up where you need to be without the need for clicking through the buttons, assuming you know ahead of time what your system needs to look like, which you should. but not your endgame setup or anything. The DSC can also deploy single component to an established DSC configuration. Is dark mode medieval? I don't know, but here it is. You're going to have some dark mode. And I'm showing this because other than trying to do some troubleshooting in quotes and italics, this is the extent of the PowerShell that you'll need. What it's doing here is grabbing the module that allows you to do desired state configuration, grabbing the module that is the ArcGIS module for the desired state configuration, and then changing some configuration to do apply only configuration mode. What that means, I don't know. I'm off script now. I thought it was good when I wrote it. It's not. I'm off script. You need the stuff. I don't know why. That's the stuff. Just take it from me. I spent a lot of time doing this, and this is the kit and caboodle. Okay. So you know, the last bit I guess that I wrote in here that is kind of that's okay is that we want to use the desirable state configuration because it is automated, repeatable, and self-documenting way to deploy our enterprise. And what I mean by self-documenting we'll dig into in the next sections. So the joke here, and we're going to burn time in this presentation talking about the joke about the presentation, is that 700 years ago, right, you have like knights, the top fighters in the land, someone who lived by like a highly rigorous moral code would deign combat with a snail. And the punchline of that joke in the presentation here probably is that the snail is a worthy opponent, combatant due to its armor. But to be honest, a lot of the times I identify with the snail, especially when it comes using technology in the Esriverse, because I feel unequipped to competently engage with systems that seem beyond my skill to master. But you know, I'm always struck by an Arthur C. Clarke quote: "Is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic," and I hate thinking that something is magic, and I feel compelled to understand. So this next part is me trying to understand. Again, it's the Windows PowerShell DSC for ArcGIS Enterprise Desktop and Pro. That's the official name, kind of a mouthful. You can get to it from Esri's GitHub, or just type in ArcGIS PowerShell DSC in your search engine of choice. The project is currently in version 4. However, when navigating there from the first link, which we'll look at, it'll take you to templates from version 3. And perhaps you might be wondering what makes this project unapproachable to me, you, anyone, and that is the documentation is sparse, which is fine. I would rather have something that works than have excellent documentation and something that doesn't work. At this point, it's instructive for a second even to look at generally what a stripped down 3-machine deployment would look like. So I grabbed the version 3 template and gave it the illumination treatment. So when we look at the configuration file next, we'll have an idea of what these lines represent. So there's the thing, right? It's easy. It's easy. That's the thing. So you'll be spending most of your time bouncing around between the sample configs folder and the wiki. The first image is from the README. The next image is the version 4.0.2 sample configs folder that's got all the templates in it. And then outside of the base deployment, you've got desktop, GIS servers, whatever. Yeah, I was like, man, that script is real long. It's because there's 2 slides. This is the wiki. It's a glorified glossary, kind of. Sort of. You'd wish it was a glorified glossary. That would be great if it was. And then this is literally the level of documentation that you're going to get, because what feeds the invoke command of the DSC is a JSON template file. And if you don't know, JSON is not a file type that has commenting. So everything in here is going to be like the parameter that you need to fill out with 0 inline documentation to guide you as to what that parameter is and why. Anyway, that's the reason you're going to the wiki a lot, is because it's like, hey, what's this thing do? I don't know. It's base deployment single machine. Okay, fair enough. So this is just a sneak peek of what we're going to look at, this stuff momentarily. Template files are about 100 lines long, highly formatted. See, it's not too bad. So yeah, we're gonna do the thing. We're gonna do a thing right now, and just fair warning for everyone. I was going to script maybe a little bit more of the demo, and oh geez, wow, that is some that's okay. Oh, we don't need to see it. Anyway, so I'm just gonna improv this bit because improv is great. This is the fancy, hey, look at Esri ArcGIS DSC stuff, and it's like, oh wow, there's lots of links here. This is gonna be real informative, and it's less than that. So there's that, and then it's like, hey, just go on to the GitHub and do the thing. It's like, okay, yeah, let's, you feel prepared. There's lots of production quality here, so you're like, yes, so let's see the workflow, and it's like, hey, this is what a deployment looks like, and then hey, just download it from GitHub and edit the file, right? We don't need to editing the file. It's gonna take 2 steps, y'all. That's just 2 steps. Just do the 2 steps and then run the invoke command, and you're good. And that's there you go. That's the documentation. So I kid a little bit, not much. So we're gonna look at some other stuff too. And this is going to be less than effective. So Town of Prosper, man, some cool cat. The Town of Prosper set up a publicly facing GitHub to, pass it on and whatever. And so this is the Town of Prosper's publicly facing GitHub. Anyway, so if you were in the Esri GitHub, then you like, oh, what do I do? You can't see that link, but it says wiki, and then you could go to the sample configs folder. So we go to the sample configs folder, and we're going to look at version 4. We're going to look at version 4.0.2. We're going to go to base deployment. We're going to go to a 3-machine deployment with SSLs per node. And oh gosh, you know what? Let's see if we can just. Oh, whoa, so good. Oh, can you guys see a little bit of that? Anyway, so it's like if you do Python stuff, it's dictionaries and lists, and if you don't do Python stuff, they're arrays and lists. So all nodes here is an array. It's an array of dictionaries, and so all they're doing is saying, hey, what's the name of your machine? What type is your machine gonna be? And then how about you put in your SSL information? It's all right, right? And that's just the data store. Yeah, it's the data store. And here's server. And here it's like, hey, where do I put in the variable name? Do they want me to wrap it in an array? And the answer is no. They want you to wrap it here in a quote. So, that this is Marginalia right here. I'm spilling the secrets. Is everything within quotes. Everything within quotes. Don't leave the brackets. And then it's like, oh, what about your portal? It's also going to be a web adapter, no big deal. And then, this is fairly right. This is pretty slim. You're like, oh wow, this is kind of easy, and it is. It is kind of easy. You just say what version you want, and then this is normally for people like ArcGIS, right? Your ArcGIS server is going to have /ArcGIS/ whatever. This is your portal. Normally it's going to be portal, right? Unless you didn't do that, and that's okay. You don't have to do that. And then it's a general purpose. Why is it a general purpose server? I don't know. I'm just gonna be real with you. I don't know why it is, but that's what it is, and that's what you got to keep it as. You put in your service account here, right? Your regular service account that doesn't change credentials every 90 days, or else you're gonna have a bad time. And then here it's like, hey, here's your server. You can. This is really cool, right? You can pre-install all of the software, or using the DSC, you can say, hey, grab it from Esri, which is super, right? So you don't have to even download the things from my Esri. You can use a, let's see, let's scroll on down. It's not here. It's not, you know, it's something that, whatever. Should be here, it's not here. You would have some more security dictionaries here and there. You'd put an ArcGIS Online enabled user that would have access to install these things. Anyway, so blah blah. You put in file paths, and that's kind of the thing. Okay, so now let's look at something that's a little bit less, hopefully a little less blah blah, and that is my installation. So I guess some context is we had ArcGIS Enterprise deployed the old-fashioned way, and I'm going to call it the old-fashioned way now for forever to make everyone else feel bad about not doing this, at 10.8.1. And it was kind of a bear. I didn't like it, and just like hours of babysitting a wizard and not knowing if it's going to go to the next page or not. And so this, instead, I was like, I'm not ever doing that again. And I've always been a part of organizations where upgrading the enterprise is like red alert, and we're going to plan for a year or two to get on like 2 years ago's version because we're scared about upgrading, and I didn't want that for my life. So that's the reason why we did the DSC. And so here is our sample config with a few redacted things you don't need. That's why they're redacted. You'll need them, right, on yours, but not on mine. So here is the name of our data store that we use in our development environment. And then these, you'll notice these are just the same as, hey, we want the relational data store and the spatiotemporal data store, and obviously the server role it's playing is a data store. And then for your SSL certificate, this was a bear because we had a wildcard certificate, and you can't just like throw a wildcard certificate on stuff because apparently it doesn't know what it is. So you had to like go into IIS and then withdraw the intermediate and the root things, and we did that. Hopefully you have IT people that do certificate kind of stuff. We struggled a bit. I won't lie. That was the SSL was like more than half of our time was spent here. But we just have a PFX file, and we stored it on the server boxes that we're looking at, and then we had to extract these intermediate ones. These two intermediate ones, apparently. And so that's what we did. And so once you got that figured out, it's no big deal. And then here's the portal box, right? Again, just our dev environment. Again, we just have our certificate, right? So when you know what to do, right, it's real easy, right? Oh yeah, we'll put the name of the thing, and then we'll put the name of what we want our site to be called, right? We want to be dev-data. And then PFXs have passwords, apparently, as well. I don't know these things, so I'm not a web dev. And then the roles on it are going to be a portal and a web adapter, and again, just some file paths for these certificates. Notice they're not PFXs, they're .sirs, and why they're .sirs, I couldn't tell you. That's what the holy texts say. And finally, here's our server box and our web adapter, and again, the SSL stuff. And if you're like, oh, I can't write this down, well, you don't have to, because it's fully open and available on GitHub. If you search GitHub for Town of Prosper, you'll find this and many more wonderful things of automation. So here's kind of the guts of it, as we're at 10.9.1. We're doing Insights version 2022.3. This is kind of a beat down what I had to do, and I don't know that this is like a bug or whatever, but this is what I had to do, is I had to actually install this once without Insights and then run the invoke command again to install Insights. It seized up when I tried to install Insights right off the bat, so maybe don't do that if you're at 10.9.1. Alright, so here our server web context is ArcGIS, like is whatever routine, as everyone has done since the beginning of time. And then our portal's context is called portal. And then I put here download patches, and that's dope. So what this does right, is that now it just pings Esri and says, yo, is there any patches? And it's like, yeah, sure, and it downloads it and then applies it, right? So now no more like patch Thursdays at the end of the month and like, oh, we got to test to make sure whatever. No, you just run the thing and it does the thing and it's great, and that's great. And I almost feel bad because I didn't do the hey install the software from Esri because I already like tediously downloaded all the things. But you can do the software as well, right? There's a lot less button clicking that you have to do. Here's our service account stuff. This is what you use and inside your box. And then if you were doing a flavored SSO that required Active Directory, then this would be what that user is and why you'd have that, right? And it's here called credentials. But again, right, you kind of tiptoe through it, and if you have questions, we will look at this in a second because I had lots of questions. Then you just bug the devs. You just bug the devs on their GitHub page, and sometimes they respond to you, and it's great. And so we had our license file, and this was horrible. So what they mean by external load balancer is the web context URL, and internal load balancer is the admin context URL. And you wouldn't know that by the names of these variables, but I guess these variables are misnomers a little bit. So we did the thing. We just say, hey, this is where the installer's at. We disabled ArcMap runtime because we don't have ArcMap at Prosper, and that's great. And then we say, hey, download the patches here. And then the rest of the stuff is where you'd put it anyway, right? When you install it with the wizard, it's like, hey, you're going to call it ArcGIS server, and it's going to be in a folder called directories, and that's what it does, right? So you can use the regular nomenclature that everyone else uses, right? You don't have to be different. Then we use our primary site admin, and then here's our portal. You can set some configuration options, but just because you set some configuration options doesn't mean they're actually set. And what I mean here is the default role for a user. Why this is the programmatic name for the default role for a viewer is beyond my limited understanding. And it also doesn't work. So I had to open up a portal because it's like, hey, your users don't, whatever. And it's like I had to reset it in the GUI. So whatever. So there's some few inconsistencies, but I'd rather deal with that than deal with like a Friday night pizza party of trying to install Enterprise. And that's it, really. All we're doing, right, is just saying, hey, this is a path where you can find the things, right? And this is a folder that I made, right? But if you were to say, hey, install the software, you would just say, where is that software going to download at? And then it would automatically do the thing, and it would be great. And then here, we just installed web adapters using the software from Esri. So that's the template, right? Mine's a little bit more than 90 lines, and that's okay. That's because of the SSL stuff. It's really the bulk of it. And so I guess maybe we're wondering like, oh, Jordan, why did you have problems? And I'm like, oh, well, because I'm kind of dumb. So we can just look me up. There we go. This is me really just putting my ignorance on display. Let's look at this one. This one was good. I mean, it's good because it got fixed. It would not be good if it didn't get fixed. What are you doing on time? Yeah, I'm okay. So what you do here when you have problems is you post your configuration file and you redact the things that you need to redact. And then here we have just this horrible PowerShell output, and it's like, oh, hey, what's wrong with this? And it's really hard to debug, and the reason why it's really hard to debug, see, I'm just really honest with like, hey, I don't know anything about anything. Bullet points are your friend, right? Just ask all your questions, say what she did, and then it does the thing. Anyway, but the reason why it's hard to debug, and we'll look at this real 1 second, and we'll swap back to the slides. Because I know that I'm actually not good for time, and that's okay. I got 5 minutes. Well, I was hoping to field a question or two. So what you would do is modules here, and PSD1. So these are PowerShell. These are PowerShell scripts, right? So, oh no, PSM. See, I don't even know what a PowerShell file name should look like. That's how little I know about this stuff. Anyway, look at this. I mean, if you're coming from Python, this just looks like a wreck. And I don't know what $ mean or pluses or whatever, dashes and ats. I mean, it's real bad. But what you can do, right, is you can look at like, oh, hey, I got an error. And it's going to say, hey, here's all the times it says error, right? So it's going to spit out an error message. And then you can look at the error message, and it's going to be like, oh, it's an if-else. And then if this happens, it's because of whatever, right? So you can like kind of debug it, but if you're not fluent in PowerShell, you're going to have a bad time, like I did. And I'm like willing to stand up here and say, I had a really bad time doing this, and that's okay. Because as bad as a time as I had, I don't ever have to like button click my way through Enterprise again. Anytime I want to upgrade that Enterprise instance, it's a single command. It's filling out, updating the template file for 11.1 and calling it a day. So that is the end of the demo. And I should have, I spent hours on this, and I mean hours on like unsuccessfully installing the DSC over and over again, and then installing and uninstalling it. And I should have taken more screenshots. But this is kind of, if you want to like a feel for what it's going to look like, this is kind of what it's going to look like. And this is a verbose mode. You don't have to make it run and make it look like the Matrix. But if you're into that, like I'm into that, then that's how you want to run it. Right? And this is what an error looks like. It's like, hey, we had a write exception, so we'd Control F and be like, oh, why did this happen? Blah, blah, blah. Unable to retrieve portal token. Why? That kind of stuff. But then when it works, it works. Look at that. It's just like, it's just like a single line. Oh, by the way, ArcGIS Federation complete. No big deal. Like go on your way. And that's like, that really is the goal, right? Is to put in a one-liner and get out a working Enterprise to painlessly upgrade between long-term release versions, and really not spend a ton of your time clicking around doing stuff, right? Be doing other GIS things that a person might like to do. So we've looked at the nitty-gritty with regard to the template and explained a bit about how it's structured and how you would troubleshoot some issues. And after all of this, why are we doing this again? And it's because we don't make maps. I mean, this is a map, and only because I promised we'd have one map. So here's the one map. And the point is, we're kind of beyond this. In the medieval era, this was cutting edge, right? How else would you know how to get to a place, right? No Google Maps, no GPS. Your world was what you could travel on foot within a few days, or as long as you could carry or hunt or speak the local language. Networks of information were limited. Today, we're overwhelmed with information, and while people still want points on a map, our job is to enable those kinds of activities, meaning installing and maintaining enterprise-level systems like an ArcGIS Enterprise. And in that kind of paradigm, we're expected to have the infrastructure up and running at all times. Utilizing the PowerShell DSC allows us to abstract away a lot of the lengthy activities like updates, patching, upgrades. These are all necessary and time-consuming, and in many ways are as outdated as hand-drawing a map. Yeah, I pronounced the W in that word. Anyway, this is near the end, I guess. One might say penultimate. The desired state configuration allows us to have our code as documentation to our enterprise infrastructure. Enables the capability to easily upgrade, update, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. I just write this stuff and I just hate it. I immediately hate it as soon as I write it. We want automation, and there's lots of automation that won't build itself. Instead of spending time to administer, these are air quotes, your GIS through a variety of hours-long button-clicking tasks, we can instead rely on the desired state configuration to help us achieve a more desirable state, which for me is not using an installation GUI, not having all-night update parties, and not wholesale replacing servers instead of trying to do an upgrade in place. That's that. If you're really interested, you should go and bug the devs at the Esri UC in a few months. I kid. you should go bug them via GitHub. Still a joke. I've got jokes. That's the end. That's the DSC. Anyone wants to talk about the DSC, I'm stoked to talk about the DSC off script. Yeah! Yeah, Neil Rose, what's up? I know you.
I did, so the example that you gave us was for a single box installation. Can you break up the DSC to do a multi-box installation?
Oh, yeah. So I did it on multi-box. I did 3 boxes, 1 for each component, and once you install it that way, you can add in new components with the DSC. The only like gotcha is that it is not that it's impossible to retrofit a current installation for the DSC, but you will end up paying Esri Professional Services a lot of coin to do that for you. Okay, Sherry Forbes? Sherry Forbes?
Yes.
Yes! Oh, I remember the face and the names. This is great.
Amazing.
I know!
When you had the success screenshot with the blue.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice blue. Business is blue. There we go. Woo!
Am I reading that correctly? That to install this only took 5 minutes?
Oh, no. Okay, so what happened is it takes like, I don't know, 2-3 hours. I mean, it's a lot faster than the wizard. What happened here is that this went through, installed all the things, and then I had a single patch that I had to do. So this did the patch in 5 minutes and refederated everything. Yeah, no. This is not real magic. This is not gonna set up Enterprise in 5 minutes. It's gonna take a while. But I mean, the benefit is like, it's gonna pop up, and it's either gonna be red because it broke, right, or it's gonna be yellow and white, and it's gonna be not broken. That's really cool. Yeah, what's up, Madeline Dillner?
Question, but I was just saying they are running behind the group next door.
Ooh.
I know, it's like we win, but I think we just tech problems. So like you can answer questions a little more for a little longer if you want.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
want
into
to
it.
start until they all get out.
I love
I
it.
don't want them to want to come in here and see you, but have them be in there still. So if
No,
you
that's
guys don't
fine.
mind,
Yeah.
you may have to squish some of the afternoon kind of a little bit. Are they just a social? Are you talking? Then no.
All right, so I'm gonna rap about this until City of Fate wants me to mosey on down. Joey?
Yeah, I've never been on your side, okay, ever in my career. So, like, what goes in, like, to an upgrade, and what are the hurdles you're looking at from an ArcGIS standpoint to upgrade? I mean, what
Are you talking like button clicking or do the DSC?
Let's go either way.
Okay, with the button clicking, right? You're clicking buttons, and so there's 2 flavors of an upgrade, right? There's an in-place upgrade of where you click the buttons and you hope that everything works and it doesn't break your stuff, and then there is a separate upgrade and deploy, and that's where people are so scared they're going to break their environment that they build a new environment, build a new enterprise, rebuild all their apps, and then switch over those machines at the very end and be like, oh, here's our upgraded environment. It's like, no, it's a new environment that is at a higher version. So that's the thing, is that there's lots of fear behind it, and there's lots of babysitting wizards, and when it doesn't work right, you have to unwrap it and you're not sure why. When you get the template correct and everything works, it's gonna work. And that's the difference, is you do a single line command here and then it upgrades, the end, you're done. And you don't have to worry about that. Neil Rose, what's up?
So in the errors where you're actually failing for the upgrade, you have to then go through and clean those out, or does the DSC uninstall on the second reinstall? Is there a thing where it goes so far and then fails? You have to go and uninstall those components, or is there a cleanup process?
So it depends on how bad you are at life. I was very bad at life. Well, because, I started at 10.8.1 because I want to see what an upgrade looks like. And the components were stuck inside, but there was some sort of bad thing that I did. And so I had to use some command line things to empty out those folders, and it was really bad. The assumption is that it won't break once it's installed correctly, but in the development phase and testing through it. If you break it up, right, you're gonna have to uninstall those components, and it kind of sucks. Don't just like hit delete on the folder because it'll take hours. You have to run a command line like robocopy into an empty folder, and that's how you do it. All right, I am out of here. So wait, Joey. All right, buzzer beater. What's up?
Buzzer beater. Time difference between two processes.
Oh, you know, I didn't time them because I really hated. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't even be able to ballpark it. I mean, if I had to, you're probably spending 50% more time, right? Because you literally have to stare at a wizard and wait for it to do the thing, and then like, oh, the button's clickable now or whatever. And it's bad. All right, this really is the end. Everyone, thank you so much. It's been awesome. City of Fate, they're gonna do their thing.